The year is 1793. You're hunting north of Sandusky, Ohio. You travel through some very dense woods, following a river to a great lake. You set up camp. Now, you set off to hunt for some food. You see some ducks out in the lake. You fire off a shot. Then, you hear an unearthly roar. Your attention turns to the sound, and then you see it. A large snake-like creature. Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of the Xplorers, Seekers of Truth. I am Lesson Cabbage. Joined with me tonight, and as always, my best friend, fellow researcher, and co-host, charming Chad Charlesworth.
Well, how are you doing tonight, luscious Lesson Cabbage?
Oh, I've not bad, but I've been better. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for any coughs and snorts or any other, odd sounds that might come out of me.
I wish I had the excuse of having a cold, but this is my normal voice, folks, and it is really irritating at times.
I think it's charming.
Well, the ladies love it.
So, what is on the menu for tonight's show, my friend?
Well, tonight, Les, we're going to talk about lake monsters.
A very good topic. Very good topic.
You have a lot of lake monsters. I mean, I think there's over 200 and some different reported lake monsters in the world. So we're going to talk about some of the unsung heroes of the relatively deep.
That sounds interesting.
Well, it is.
And of course, we're always interrupted by odd beeps and chimes from our stupid phones. I think we need to silence those.
Phones are off now, folks.
Phones off. So no messaging us during our show, please.
Yeah. It's hard enough for the two of us to actually sit here, look at each other and
and not laugh. And you got to stay focused. So, what you said, lake monsters. We're not touching sea monsters, right?
No, we're only going to deal with lake monsters.
Okay.
Sea monsters, I mean, you go into the Kraken, you go into all these legendary Norse tales. Mm-hmm. I think you could do a show on each one of those on their own.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to try to focus on 3 lakes tonight.
Okay. And they're all within North America, correct?
Yes. Okay. We're gonna go to Flathead Lake, excuse me, folks, Montana, for the Flathead Lake Monster. We're going to go to Lake Tahoe for Tessie. And then we're going to discuss a few other cryptid animals. Going to try to maybe cover the Cayuga Lake Monster.
Okay, yeah.
We're going to discuss maybe the Alkaline Lake Monster also. If we have time tonight, folks, we're going to get into it. If not, we'll, maybe put a little after-hour stuff into it.
Now, you're talking about a couple of, you had mentioned a couple lake monsters there that, to me, I mean, some of them are man-made lakes, and have been pretty well proven as a hoax. So now, do you want to touch base on that a little bit?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've all probably have seen the Lost Tapes Oklahoma octopus episode. It was filmed at 10 Killers Lake. The other report, Thunderbird Lake. I couldn't remember the name of it there for a minute. People have to realize they're both man-made lakes. They were only made by the Army Corps of Engineers in the past 100 years.
Yeah.
For an animal like an octopus. In Lost Tapes, they say, an animal that was left when the water started receding could, because of the changing time frame of the water, be able to adapt itself to living in fresh water.
But it's man-made.
It's man-made. There's no receding water. It is straight up, we pumped water into it. It's like a big swimming pool. Yeah. And if you've ever been to Oklahoma, no offense people in Oklahoma, it's probably a dirty swimming pool. I've been to Oklahoma. It's not nice.
And Oklahoma, I mean, I'm not great with geography, but that's nowhere really near the sea, is it? There's no tributaries or inlets.
No.
So how an octopus would have gotten there would be...
Yeah, the only theory could be that it would be a leftover from like the last ice age or, as the waters receded.
Yeah.
But again, we said it's a man-made lake, so there is no ice age recession of water here.
All right. Well, we'll touch base on that more in depth later. So what is the first creature or lake monster that you want to tackle on tonight's show?
Well, I'd like to tackle the Flathead Lake Monster.
Okay.
And what people got to realize is you're looking at a lake that's surface area is 197 square miles.
That's a big lake.
Its length is 27.3 miles. Its width is 15.5 miles.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's, I mean, its depth itself, max depth is 370 feet. Average is 164, which actually makes it deeper than the Yellow River and the Persian Gulf.
If I keep drinking, I'm going to have a Yellow River in my pants.
You got to also understand it's the largest natural freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. So it also has a shoreline of 161 miles.
Jeez.
So you have a lot of area, you know, people are out fishing, boating, swimming. So you're going to have a lot of reports at different times.
Yeah, a lot of areas for people to look out and see things.
Yeah, a lot of touristy areas, basically, where you're going to have people where, you know, some lakes, you know, they have maybe one or two spots that people can actually go and use for recreation.
Right.
This is a lake with 161 miles of shoreline for fishing, boating. So let me give you a little description of what we're talking about here, though, folks.
I'm just checking to see if you had your timer running.
No, I don't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Basically, your descriptions are a large eel-shaped creature with a round, wavy body like a snake, approximate length between 20 and 40 foot. Now, you also get, you know, where it always gets me on my skeptical side is you get the color. It goes anywhere from brownish to bluish black with grayish black eyes. Other reports, it's a giant eel with a bowling ball head.
Oh, nice.
You know, and then
Well, here's a question. If people could get a description so detailed that they could go into eye color, that's a little impressive to me. Like, you would think that you'd have to be extremely close.
Well, yeah, you would. You would think eye color. I mean, but you're also talking about a creature that could be 20 to 40 foot long. Its eyes could be 6 inches.
3 feet in diameter, or 3 inches in diameter, or something, maybe even larger, 6 inches.
Yeah. So you could possibly get, even from a distance, an eye color.
Right. Well, what kind of reports were I don't mean to jump the gun here or anything, or push ahead.
Let's go back to the original report.
All right.
It comes from Captain James Kerr of the U.S. Grant.
Not to be mistaken with Captain James Kirk.
T. Kirk, no.
Yeah. T. Kirk. Yeah. I'm not a Trekkie. I like Star Wars.
That's Tiberius for you people. And I'm not a Trekkie either. I just happen to know that. It comes back from 1889. And basically, the whole story is he was a ferry boat captain on the lake. So they would ferry from port to port inside the lake, moving goods, moving people from side to side. Again, we said it's 27 miles in length.
Yeah,
so
15 in width, you said.
Yeah, so you need a large ship to get across. So basically what they saw, or what appeared to them, was a log or possibly like an overturned boat. Mm-hmm. So, they start getting closer, and they realize there's a large whale-like creature. Now, yes, folks, I said whale-like creature approaching the boat. So one of the passengers happened to have a rifle with him. Takes out the rifle, fires a single shot at it, does not kill the creature. Seems to frighten it off. That is the original day one reporting of it.
Okay.
So that goes back to 1889. So, and you got to figure in history, there may be Native American legend to that hasn't really been brought up yet or discussed, publicly. So
interesting though, whale-like, but yet the majority of the descriptions are more serpent-like.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Is it's neither an eel or a snake-like body. For somebody to say a whale,
that's like a totally different creature.
Yeah, a whale. I've never heard somebody accidentally report a whale, but then again, too, you got to look at some of the early maritime legends of sea monsters. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of modern science, when you get these descriptions, they were describing whales.
Yeah.
So it could just be that mistaken identity, or how do you put into a reference for somebody to understand what you saw?
That's true.
To say an eel probably back then, most people had never seen an eel.
Yeah.
You know, to say an eel, and somebody looks at you and goes, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, an eel? What's an eel? To say a whale, though, and I mean, 20 to 40 foot long.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge. So what do we know, basically, at that time frame, what do we know as a culture to describe something that big in water?
Yeah.
It's a whale.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no way for a whale to be in a lake that size.
Yeah. And they're not typically in fresh water.
No, I mean, they do have some that, you know, swim up, I guess, in the locks up there in Canada. They do get pretty far up in there, but that is also water coming from the ocean.
So it's a mix.
Yeah.
It's not a still body of fresh water.
Yeah, and it's not like river-fed, mountain stream-fed type water. Now, the average sightings are 1 to 2 per year.
Wow.
Until you get to 1993, where they had 13 reports in about a 5-month window.
Huh.
You go, and here's the thing about it. It's like you try to attribute it to weather, lake conditions. The lake in 93, from the studies done on the water, from the weather, it's not unusual conditions. These are average Montana, you know, spring, summer, fall conditions. It's not super hot out. It's not super cold. So you go to May of 93, the 24th of May. They actually spotted 2 monsters in Big Arm Bay, which is a section of the lake. And what they described it as was one was larger and one was smaller. Now, some people attribute that to mother, baby,
an offspring, yeah,
or male, female. Yeah, you have 2 camps on that. Oh, it's a male and a female, or it's a mother baby. But they cited 2 of them, which kind of, when we get a little bit further into this, we're going to discuss a possible theory on what it could be, and this may actually help prove that theory of what it could be. You go to July 13th, 93, there was a video taken. From what they said, when they took the video, of course, it's like anything, you're startled. You see this thing out in the lake, you're fumbling for your camera, you're scared, your adrenaline kicks in. So they got an image of something moving in the lake. People who were eyewitness to when the video was taken stated prior to the video camera being brought up, you could actually see a head sticking out of the water and it moving. Huh. By the time they got the video camera up, it's that traditional Loch Ness Monster video. It's awake.
Yeah.
Going through the water. So that was on July 13th. Now, July 15th, 2 sightings occurred 25 minutes apart and 15 miles apart inside that lake. So, again, they cited 2 in May. Is this 2 separate ones? Is it a breeding population? Or is it the fact of, you know, they move that quick? I mean, 25 minutes, 15 miles. I'm not a mathematician here, folks. If anybody wants to, they can send me a message with how fast that actually is. But, you know, so you have 2 different sightings there, separated by time and mileage. Then you go to July 17th, you have 2 more sightings were made in the same area, but half a day apart. So, was it in that area in the morning, feeding, maybe getting, you know, up, getting a little bit of sunlight.
Or warming up in shallower waters or something, yeah.
Somebody sees it, fisherman, whatever. It goes away later in the day. It comes back. Good source of food close to the shores. You got a lot of little fish coming in, baby fish being born. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at a lot of sea predators, they generally will hunt those areas right out of the shallows.
Right.
Because everything has babies in the shallows, and then those babies have to make it to the open ocean. So a lot of times that's where predators will lurk in that area. So there's a good portion of sightings right there. Now, when you get to explanations of what it is, you know, I always look at three things when we're talking about lake monsters, loch monsters, whatever you want to call a lake. Is it a living dinosaur? Is it a relic of the dinosaur age? You know, they found the coelacanth.
Right.
The coelacanth was extinct. It was extinct.
Millions of years
ago.
Yeah.
And people started catching them.
Right.
Yeah. So is it possible that something could be held over from prehistoric days? Folks, believe me, as a child, I loved the Loch Ness Monster. Anything Loch Ness Monster related. Speaking
of, I just recently watched a movie from I think it was 1993 or maybe 1995. It was called Loch Ness with Ted Danson.
That was a good movie. I actually saw it. I mean, let's be honest, it's a movie made for kids.
Yeah, but it was entertaining to a point.
Yeah.
If it didn't have Ted Danson in it, it'd be much better.
Well, it could be a Sci-Fi Channel movie.
Oh yeah,
you know what
straight
I mean?
to sci-fi.
Yeah. You know, so like I was saying, you know, is it a living dinosaur? It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, not to interrupt you, but I have actually heard, now not necessarily on the aquatic side of things, but I've actually read reports in, I want to say, late 1800s, early 1900s, around the turn of the century. Some, I guess, engineers or whatever, workers were cutting through a mountain pass to make way for a railroad.
I believe you're referring to a story in France.
The location escapes me right now. I heard it a long time ago. But you know what I'm talking about. It's with the pterodactyl?
Yes.
Yeah.
The pterosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the story. I believe it was somewhere in France that they were drilling through, and they opened up this chamber.
Yep, and out popped this pterosaur or pterodactyl.
Whatever
and it flopped for a few minutes, and it was gasping for air.
Yeah.
Now, it was alive.
Yeah.
And then it passed.
Well, one thing I think you got to go back and look at, you know, you and I grew up with Jurassic Park.
Right.
Well, there's one major issue with me and Jurassic Park. The atmosphere. Our atmosphere is less carbon dioxide, I believe, than the dinosaur's age. And I'm drawing back on my childhood of dinosaur books. So, yes, an animal could live. But again, they would have to adapt to the new atmosphere.
Right. Which is possibly why the thing was gasping.
Yeah. But then again, think about it. It's also a flying dinosaur, reptile. It's actually not a dinosaur, I believe. I forget. The flying ones were not dinosaurs from what I remember.
Yeah. Flying reptile, nonetheless.
Yeah. So, you have to think, what would it be doing in a cave?
Right.
If it's in a cave, where does the outlet to this cave go?
Yeah.
I mean, they never said,
well, look at it this way. Look at how a lot of amphibious and reptilian creatures survive today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you take like toads and frogs and stuff like that, or even turtles, salamanders. They'll go to the bottom of ponds. They'll make like this mucusy kind of air sac chamber that they'll basically go into a state of suspended animation for however long it needs to be in there. And those actually, there's those species of, I think they're catfish or salamanders in Africa, where they'll lay dormant in one of those mucus sacs for the wet season, and they could be in there for years.
Yeah.
And they, you know what I mean? They survive that long. Now, billions of years, I find that hard to believe. But I mean, you figure if this thing was encapsulated in this mucousy sac, it was compressed over millennia.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's like I always say when they talk about, especially with aquatics.
Uh-huh.
You know, with these living dinosaurs, remnant populations. Alligators survived. Crocodiles survived from that period to now. So, you're telling me other animals weren't capable of this process?
Exactly.
You know? One of the other things I look at is misidentified creatures. Known creatures.
Right.
You know, somebody who's never seen a specific type of fish, oh my God, it was this big and this long and it had this kind of, and it stuck its head out of the water. Well, it was a fish jumping out of the water. They caught it at the end.
Right.
And all of a sudden it is this
a sea monster or a lake
monster. Yeah. You know.
Or two, a female moose that could be swimming along. When they swim, they keep their nose, out of the water. Yeah. Almost like a snorkel.
Yeah.
And their noses are very odd compared to most other animals, And if you look at it funny, just kind of floating along, they create a wake, and they have that humped shoulder. So you have this head, maybe a hump behind it, and then maybe the rump would come up as it's propelling itself. Mm-hmm. So, okay, there you have this funny looking head, this lake monster head, and then two humps behind it or whatever, So in the case of misidentification.
Yeah. Well, and two, if you look at some of these reports, a horse-like head is attributed to a lot of reports.
Yeah.
Well,
and moose are very much aquatic creatures. They spend a lot of time in wetlands, marshlands, and swamps.
Yeah. I know when I was in Maine, I was within 100 yards of the ocean, and there were moose in this person's yard every day.
Yep.
So it means they're not afraid of water.
No, absolutely not. And a lot of them aren't even afraid of civilization. So you think, or humans, So a lot of people, it's wild. It'll run. It'll be afraid. Blah blah. It's not a bull.
It's a moose.
Yeah, exactly. It's an 1,800-pound animal that isn't afraid of really anything.
Yeah, I mean, people who have never actually seen a moose think, it's like a white-tailed deer or any kind of a native deer species to where you're listening from. They're not. I've hunted deer all my life. I saw my first moose and realized, holy crap, that is huge.
Yeah, really.
I'm thinking, like, people actually hunted these things at one, hunt these things. I'm like, I mean, they're moving back into Pennsylvania, in fact, moose.
Yeah.
And I could never imagine trying to hunt one because you would need a tractor trailer truck to get it back out of the woods.
Yeah.
Misidentified objects also. Logs. Logs you see on these shows now on TV, these guys are out in the swamps and they dive down to get these logs because this wood is worth so much money.
Right.
So is it a log? It's stuck underwater. It pops up to the top.
Well, a lot of them are trapped underneath there, and because it's a vegetation, it creates like that. Is it like a methane?
I believe it is methane.
Yeah, some kind of a plant-based gas, and it propels them out of whatever they're stuck in, mud, whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them come shooting up out of the water. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you think a lot of reports.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was it rocketed to the top and then back down into the water.
Right.
Well, something shot with gas, once it hits the air, the gas stops propelling it. It goes up, it comes down.
Exactly.
Does it? Some of them float for a while. Some of them, from the force of them going up so fast and so hard,
and then they're under there for how long? They're waterlogged. They're so much more dense.
Yeah.
They don't have the buoyancy of like a fresh log thrown in the water.
Yeah. So you have that kind of stuff, and I always look at that because that's like my determining factor.
Yeah.
Could it be a log? A lot of these reports of it was, I saw this shape going through the water. I've already been driving along a river, looked over. It's a river I drive by on a regular basis, and in the wintertime, it's really low. In the summertime, it's high up, and I've seen trees sticking out of the water and went, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah.
And stopped to process for a second and thought, oh, well, that's where that tree stump sticks out with all those gnarly bottom branches and that's about the same spot. And then you drive by in the wintertime and there's that tree stump sitting in the water. And, that day it just happened to poke out enough above the water line.
Where it was like a different from what you normally see. Yeah.
So, an explanation, a possible explanation for the Flathead Lake monster is, are they sturgeon being mistaken for monsters? And is that why multiple people are seeing it the same day?
Uh-huh.
If you have a population of sturgeon, I saw 25 minutes and 15 miles apart, it could be two separate fish that just happened to pop up at the time two different people were looking,
Right.
and all of a sudden, oh my God, it's a lake monster, and we saw two of them in one day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sturgeon themselves, they're basically a relic. They're pretty much like a dinosaur. I mean, they've survived the ages, and they're huge.
Yeah.
Huge fish.
Yeah.
Very thick, very long, and they have like that alligator-looking face and mouth and everything. They're a menacing-looking species themselves. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and also they spend a lot of their time at the extreme depths. So it's not like you see them. You know, they're not surface fish.
Yeah.
You know, they don't spend a lot of time up, looking for flies or stuff at the top. They feed off the bottom, and they go after, larger fish from the more of the depth. Mm-hmm. So it's not a common fish or animal, for that matter, that anybody's going to look at and be like, oh, that's a sturgeon. They're not common. They're not recognizable.
Well, it's funny you say that, Les, because I didn't know we had something called an alligator gar.
Yeah.
Until I saw it on, it was like River Monsters or one of these shows with these extreme fishing things. I never in my life saw or heard of an alligator gar.
Yeah. Well, they look very similar to the sturgeon, but a lot more gnarly.
Yeah. Now, you take me down south or, where they have these fish, and I see one of those. Oh my God, you guys got a river monster, a lake monster. No, that's just an alligator gar.
Yeah.
No, it couldn't be. I saw it had these teeth and this face. It's a misidentification. It's a known creature.
Just not known to that person.
Yeah. So, I mean, sturgeon and stuff like that, it could possibly be. Could it be an unknown species? I mean, that's something we deal with here on this show is unknown species. One thing I always like to do, I'm a skeptic first and a researcher second.
Yeah.
You show me something, I'm going to find 10 faults with it.
Right.
And then I'm going to try to find the 10 answers to my 10 faults. Mm-hmm. People, because it goes back to that whale-like sighting.
Yeah.
A large sturgeon could be mistaken for a small whale.
Especially if it were, excuse me, if it were dead, sorry, and perhaps it surfaced, it was bloated, whatever, and they shot it, it deflated, the gases were releasing and the body would then descend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if it were dead and bloated, it was going to look a hell of a lot bigger.
Wasn't that a Stone Temple Pilots song?
Yeah. But good song. But you take that into consideration, and you also take into consideration that the populations back then were probably a much higher number, and those creatures were probably a hell of a lot bigger than nowadays. You know, so it's very, very much possible that it was just a dead sturgeon or something like that,
or even a living sturgeon that just happened to be at the top of the water for some reason.
Yeah, just like those. What's the other fish that people commonly mistake as a sea monster? The oarfish, which was another species thought to be extinct.
Yeah.
They are the oddest, creepiest looking things, and they are almost never seen on surface water.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, a few of them within the last couple of years, I think, have been coming up to surface, and people caught them and saw them, and what the hell is this? Because most people don't know it.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it or you don't know it, it's a monster to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's the unknown. It's a human condition. You don't know what it is.
So your brain automatically has to make up something for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes that's why I feel some of the descriptions get so distorted.
Right.
Your brain sets into trying to analyze what it just saw. It can't, it's almost like one of those computer programs where it has the image that you just saw and pictures, and it's just flipping through trying to find something that looks like it.
Exactly.
And it gets to the end of that reel, and it looks and goes, monster.
Yeah, right.
It couldn't possibly be an actual creature. It's got to be something no one's ever seen before.
Yeah.
So that's the Flathead Lake monster. I mean, I'm not saying it is a sturgeon. I mean, I personally love if somebody would fund us to go there and take a look.
Me. Yeah.
So if anybody wants to fund us,
yeah,
please.
Anybody out there willing to pay for two guys to go out and do a little bit of research, we're your guys.
We work cheap.
Because we po.
Yeah, we ain't proud either.
That's right.
Now, the next one I'd like to cover is Tahoe Tessie.
Okay.
You know, this is a story with so many layers. I sent you that message. This one could be an episode on its own because you got conspiracy theories, you've got cryptids, you've got, you know, the mob, you've got Jacques Cousteau involved. So let's talk a little bit about Tahoe Tessie. It's described, now this is the great one, between 10 and 80 foot.
Oh, that is a gap.
Yeah. Large serpentine body. Okay.
Classic, yes.
Yeah, between 10 and 80 foot, though. Now, I'm no genius. Well, actually, I am. Ask my mommy. She'll tell you. I did score high. I know what 10 foot looks like, and I know that it doesn't look close to 80 foot.
Yeah, exactly,
You know?
yeah.
So you're looking at this, like, between 10 and 80 foot serpentine body. Now, it's either 10 foot or it's bigger.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand if it was 12 foot, 20 foot, but you're talking between 10 and 80. The last one was only a 20 foot difference.
Yeah.
This one's getting to 70. Yeah. So you're looking at something there. It has, it's been described as having a wide body, almost the size of a barrel. Mm-hmm. Now, again, 10 to 80 foot, the size of a barrel for the length of this body, a serpentine body. It's pretty big, or it's really small. Colors range from jet black to turquoise. Again, I'm
borderline genius.
I'm actually over genius level, but jet black to turquoise. I'm pretty sure they're pretty far apart on the color spectrum.
Oh yeah.
Smooth skin. And the interesting thing about this, and what kind of drew me to this one to cover on the show tonight, is the original report is from 1950. But the interesting thing is the two people giving the report. They're both off-duty police officers. Mm-hmm. Out on the lake, reported seeing a large black hump rise from the water and keep speed with the boat that they were on, going over 60 miles per hour. Now, again, large hump, tree or something coming out of the water, but have kept speed with the boat at 60 miles per hour.
Right.
But they don't give really, in their report, they didn't give a size. They say a large, black hump. Now, I assume they were probably out midday, afternoon.
Yeah.
Black hump, and again, you go back to the reports of between jet black and turquoise.
Yeah.
Does it change colors?
Well, I'm thinking turquoise. Maybe it's like gas or oil, something spilled. You know what I mean? Because that has like that rainbow effect and kind of turquoisey and pink, and So maybe it was just a long oil slick that was reflecting the turquoise, and they're just like, "Oh my God, that's different from the rest of the water. It's this big creature." And another thing, now again, like I had said before, my geography is absolutely horrible. Lake Tahoe is where?
Nevada. Nevada,
We
California.
didn't really research this one very well.
Yeah.
It's in a book.
Read it.
But I was going to say, with something swimming that fast in fresh water, maybe it was like a seal or a sea lion or something like that, but I don't think they would be in Lake Tahoe.
Not unless somebody dumped one there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could understand a coastal area, but Tahoe, from what I believe, is close to the mountains, the Rocky Mountains and everything.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. And to cover up our faux pas of not knowing where Lake Tahoe is right now, the next report comes, next kind of valid report I put up comes from 1980. Two fishermen report seeing a 15-foot serpent pass underneath the surface of the water near Cave Rock in Lake Tahoe, excuse me. Several weeks later, two divers report finding a cave. When they found this cave in the water, a large serpentine creature shot out of the cave. They found two impressions of what looked like fin impressions when they had went in and actually researched the cave. Now,
not to cut you off, but I just looked it up. Lake Tahoe is right on the border of Nevada and California.
See, I was right.
Yeah, and it is nowhere really near, and I don't see really any tributaries or any rivers. I could be wrong. I'm just looking on Google Maps. But yeah, I would definitely say not a seal or a sea lion, unless, like you said, it was just dumped off.
Yeah, which would be hard to believe that an animal like that would even exist long enough to, and two, there you go, you don't have a breeding population.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from 1950 to 1980. Yeah, that's 30 years.
Yeah.
Now you go to 2004, the staff on the Tahoe Queen, which is another one of those boats that, do the lake, like, rounds. They move stuff, people, ferry people to and from.
But here again, maximum length of Lake Tahoe, 22 miles. Maximum width, 12 miles. Again, a very sizable lake, right? So a surface area of 191 square miles. And the average depth is 1,000 feet or 300 meters. Maximum depth is over 1,600 feet. That's huge.
Oh, yeah.
If this thing is like and 71 mile of shoreline, so there again you have a lot of area for people to be, watching or observing.
Yeah.
But this thing could possibly be like the oarfish or the sturgeon or something like that, where it spends most of its time in the depths and seldom or occasionally surfaces. So I'm just saying, because even looking at the pictures and stuff like that, like, geez, there's a lot of room for something to be in there. But I'm sorry, go ahead. There was the divers, and they came upon the cave with the serpent-like creature.
I'm actually a little bit past that less. If you,
I'm just trying to get the people, just jogging their memory.
Yeah. Okay. So we're in 2004 now, and the staff on the Tahoe Queen took a picture of a black hump in the water. It was taken, I believe, by one of the bartenders who wasn't working at the time. He claimed it's the top of the creature's head. Again, it's a photo. Mm-hmm. Is it real? Is it doctored? Is it a misidentified tree stump hanging out of the water? Now, here's the thing. There's also rumored to be footage of Tahoe Tessie, which is reportedly being analyzed before being released. Now, I'm not sure when they got this footage. This is just a rumor that goes along with the legend of Tahoe Tessie, is that there is footage that they're analyzing. Now, some of the theories, I want to go into the theories of what it could be or what people believe it to be before I get into some of the other layers of this cake. Theories are plesiosaur, ichthyosaur, mosasaur. And those are basically due to the fact that there are fossils found in that region of these different aquatic, dinosaur age reptiles. I may be wrong. They may not be reptiles. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just trying to remember what I read as a kid. A lot of experts, though, dismiss this due to the lake was only formed in the last ice age. So it is a natural lake. That makes it hard to have a relic dinosaur in there.
Right.
But, we keep saying these things are extinct, and then some fisherman in India catches one, there's a photo on the world news, BBC or whatever, and all of a sudden we got to reclassify that this thing is not extinct. We now have a living, recently living body of one.
Right.
So, I would love to believe it is relic dinosaurs.
You and me both.
Like I said, as a kid, I grew up reading dinosaur books and Loch Ness Monster, and it was a plesiosaur to me. Mm-hmm. It could be a log, but it would be the plesiosaur of logs.
In our heart of hearts, it's
Yeah.
a plesiosaur.
Yeah, but like I said, you got to be a skeptic when when you're looking into this, people.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't make outlandish claims like every single noise or log or wave. Well, it's definitely a lake monster because Lord knows there's a lot of people who out there in the cryptozoological world that claim that every noise, every stick, every branch break, every owl fart is some kind of unknown creature.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, even with our research in the paranormal end of it, every time a house creaks, it's haunted.
Yep.
There are very few times that anybody looks at it rationally and goes, the house is settling. It went from cold to warm, warm to cold. The house is moving around a little.
New or old, a house is going to do that.
Yeah. Here again, we go back to some other theories that people have put up, and we're back to the sturgeon.
Right.
I would start to tend to believe sturgeon on a lot of these because, like we said, a lot of people have never seen one. A lot of people don't have the, look at a sturgeon and know right away, hey, that's a sturgeon.
Right.
Now, one of the other theories thrown up is possibly a new species of freshwater eel.
Okay. Yeah.
We're really just breaking the surface on a lot of these lakes due to the depths.
Mm-hmm.
We're not getting to the bottom of a lot of these. Like you said, I believe it was 1,000 some foot.
Yeah. Oh, maximum depth of 1645, I think it said.
So we're not diving to the bottom of these on a regular basis and exploring them. Again, like I always argue this with a lot of people is we went to space before we've gotten to the bottom of some of our lakes.
Yeah, or even the ocean yet.
Yeah. And everybody uses, the pressure, it'll kill you. So will space.
Yeah, really.
But we figured out a way to get there.
Uh-huh.
And
well, they're using a lot of those. What are they? Those not are they rovers?
The rovers,
ROVs. Yeah. Not in space, but underwater. Well, both in outer space and in underwater, they have those like radio control submarines or whatever. And then what was it? James Cameron was just in like a single man or two man. Was it James Cameron?
Yeah.
Whoever did the Titanic.
James Cameron.
Yeah. He was down in one of those filming the remains of the Titanic, and he went on another expedition, I believe, and they were down at the bottom of the ocean, and there were so many creatures that they couldn't even couldn't even survive down there because there was the sulfuric chutes, like the little chimneys down there that were shooting out sulfuric gases, and the water was so acidic and polluted. They didn't think anything could survive, but there was this whole colony of different kind of sea life, different like those living plant things. God, my brain is not working tonight.
Les, I just want to fill you in. All plants are
no. You know what I mean. Like, I can't think of the name of them. My brain's fried.
Just remember, I helped Les get through high school.
Yeah. But different kind of crabs and stuff like that. Like, just there's life down there. Bottom line, you know.
Oh yeah, the further we go, the more we discover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think people in the explorer days of Columbus ever considered going to the bottom of the ocean unless they were dead,
Yeah, really.
So, a lot of things, the more inquisitive we've gotten, the more stuff we're going to find.
Exactly, yeah.
It's a vast ocean. These lakes are, like I said, I mean, you go to the Flathead Lake, it's the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi.
Right.
Could something live in there that we have not discovered yet? Yeah, because we're finding stuff in places that we've supposedly trekked all the way through and have discovered everything possible. Yeah. And then somebody discovers a new bug.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, yeah, a bug, it's little. You can write that off as, they didn't see it.
But it's new.
Yeah, it's being found.
Yep.
There are creatures out there.
Well, within the past, let's just say 20 years, there was that large species of oxen found in the Vietnamese rainforest.
Yeah.
Which is an oxen. It's a large mammal.
Yeah.
You know, and the
wasn't there also a monkey? Was it the flat-nosed monkey or something like that? Also found in Vietnam.
Right.
Vietnam
right.
is one of those areas where, because of it being a communist government,
not a lot of people are allowed in there.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of it. We had the reports from our soldiers who said, no, there's these things that live in the woods. They're monkeys. And, the Vietnam War was such a traumatic thing for America that, we did not want to deal with it or discuss it.
Yeah.
The Vietnamese government, hey, honey, I said it right. Their major concern at the end of the war and rebuilding their country was not, oh yeah, we have the species of monkeys with a flat nose.
Yeah.
They weren't worried about that. They were worried about re-educating their, the South Vietnamese. See, I said it right again, honey. Yes, my wife makes fun of me because I cannot say Vietnamese ever. So I tried to say it right for the folks listening tonight. So you get a lot of that. You don't have the open dialogue and the open research planes. I mean, you look at the Yaren in China. There's that whole wildlife preserve that they let you into about 20% of.
Yeah.
It's, I believe it was, bigger than the state of Rhode Island. And they let you in 20% of that area because supposedly the military has stuff in the rest of it. So you have these areas that we haven't explored. Native people say about, oh, this and this creature and this creature, and oh, we have this kind of animal. And again, we go back to us as Westerners go, oh, nice folklore story. You're not... You're mistaken. We are the colonial power, and we know what we're looking at. Now, to get a little further into these layers of the of Tahoe Tessie, you have the Jacques Cousteau legend,
which isn't exactly 100% true, or hasn't been proven that he actually did this, right?
Well, no, because no one actually knows the time frame. This is the funny thing. Some people tell you it's 1960s. Other people say 1970s.
Right.
So now, right away, I go, if Jacques Cousteau, world famous oceanographer, and I would like to actually propose that Jacques Cousteau is truly a cryptozoologist. He went looking for unknown creatures in the ocean. And think about some of the discoveries he had made in the ocean, and some of his research is basically what people in the cryptozoology world do. I know some people will disagree with me. No, he was an oceanographer, and this is all he was worried about. He discovered species that were thought to be extinct. He discovered and went after legends of creatures.
Yep.
So get into this story. Basically, Jacques Cousteau went diving in Lake Tahoe, looking for Tahoe Tessie. When he returned to the top, he basically was very shaken and said, the world is not ready for what I've seen. And then basically the story changes, folks. Then all of a sudden it was his son did it. And it was much later in time frame, 80s or 90s, and his son was the one who dove on Lake Tahoe.
Right.
Well, let's face it here. If there is footage of an unknown creature, follow the money, folks. Every major network, Discovery, Animal Planet, any of these channels that play these History Channel, that play these documentaries about cryptozoology, the paranormal, animals in general, are going to pay top dollar for that video.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be a bidding war. Who could land the Jacques Cousteau films? Disney would be involved in it. So you got to look at that. You can't. If there's footage, if basically from what I've read, he never dove there.
Right.
The other where this gets into the mob and conspiracy theories is in the early days of the gambling in the West. The mob controlled gambling, not old Western day gambling, because that was not illegal and it was very prevalent. They basically say Lake Tahoe was one of those mob dumping grounds.
Right.
You whack somebody, throw them in the trunk, tie a cement, the old cement shoes, threw them in Lake Tahoe. Again, too, now if Jacques Cousteau found, because this is what people say, Jacques Cousteau found bodies floating at the bottom. And there is people that say, yes, these bodies could still actually be well intact. Some people say, well, no, the bodies would have, started to disintegrate because the water is very cold there at the depths. Again, too, if there was a film of all these mobster bodies, somebody would pay. It had been known. Yeah, people would pay for this. First of all, the government, the FBI, and Crime Task Force would love to pin where some of these people are and be able to pin murders on other people.
Right.
So they would look and they would have gotten these bodies out. You look at the whole Jacques Cousteau's son. He is famous for being Jacques Cousteau's son.
Yeah. Not for any accomplishments that he's done on his own.
He's pretty much the oceanographer version of the Kardashians.
Yeah. Really.
He's famous for
nothing.
He did have his own television show, I believe, after his father passed away. But let's face it, he only had a television show because he was Jacques Cousteau's son. You think if he had these videos, he would put them out there on the market because, like I said, it's a multi-million-dollar video. Conspiracy theories on this is basically the footage was taken or locked away. They claim the government took the footage because these mobsters are at the bottom, or it's a lake monster and the government doesn't want to let people know about this. Let's face it, I get tired of hearing these conspiracy theories. You open up any Facebook page and you can find 30 people, government conspiracies.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe the government would worry if there is a large 10 to 80 foot long unknown aquatic animal in Lake Tahoe.
Right.
I just don't see them giving a real big concern on that.
No, they have more important things to worry about, like destroying our country.
Yeah, less said than not me.
Yeah, right.
Bad connection.
Yeah.
One of the other funny rumors about Lake Tahoe is there's a plug at the bottom of Lake Tahoe that'll let all the water out. People actually believe this now. Oh. Like, there are people out there that are going, "Oh, do you know there's a plug at the bottom of Lake Tahoe, and if you pull the plug, all the water goes out like in your tub." Yeah. So you got all these layers to that, and that's what I find interesting is there's layers. You try to tie Jacques Cousteau into it all of a sudden, and Jacques Cousteau was so shaken by what he saw. This man dove with sharks.
Yeah.
I don't think a couple floating bodies
is gonna.
Yeah. I mean, he dove shipwrecks. You got to figure there were probably times where he dove shipwrecks where there might have been skeletons or pieces of skeletons or, decaying people. So, that's what we get into there. Some of the other stuff we were, going to talk about tonight, like you have the alkaline lake monster in Nebraska. And to me, this is 100% 1920s, 1930s classic hoax.
Yeah.
It's reported by a known hoaxer. The lake, the alkaline lake monster, if people don't remember the story, which I'm assuming most people don't remember 1930s news articles that are listening.
I have them laying around.
I keep them, mostly in the house for heating.
Yeah, right.
The alkaline lake monster is basically described as an alligator crocodile with a rhinoceros horn that made like rhinoceros-like footprints. Again, this guy who did this was known. He was the guy that discovered the petrified men out in the desert, which later were proven to be cement. They were cement casting of human bodies. So this guy is the 1930s, turn of the century newspaper hoaxer.
Yeah.
And he was also working for the newspaper at the time.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So
it was probably a failing newspaper that needed something to get pick it back up, get its ratings up.
It's Nebraska.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not a lot of tourism in Nebraska. And you got to think like the same as it is nowadays with paranormal stuff and research into cryptozoology is if you have Bigfoot, you have tourism.
Right, right.
If you have a ghost, you have tourist. So you're looking at, and if I say one more time, somebody smack me, please. You have these hoaxes out there that are still. You go to these websites and research cryptozoology or aquatic cryptids. These things still show up because no one can disprove a shadow of a doubt that these things don't exist.
Right.
The thing that gets me is within 20 years of the first reporting of the alkaline lake monster, there was a drought in Nebraska. The alkaline lake was the equivalency of a mud puddle. So you're telling me within 20 years, this like 17-foot alligator with a rhinoceros horn was born and grew that much?
Right.
I've had a pet alligator. They do grow rather quickly. But best conditions to grow them is dark.
Right.
If you go to gator farms in Florida, the ones they grow in the dark. They keep them in completely like sealed off containers so they keep growing. So they get those monster ones that they can show on their shows.
Yeah.
So you're not going to grow a 17-foot alligator with a rhinoceros horn in 20 years. I just like saying 17-foot alligator with a rhinoceros horn. If that doesn't scream hoax, nothing does.
Yeah, right.
Then you have like Augie. I forget what lake that is. It's a polluted lake. And basically, you look it up and there's this massive description and all these stories. But when you look at the eyewitness testimony, there's absolutely none.
Right.
But yet the stories came from Boy Scouts. They came from people at the lake. Boy Scouts claim to see a dragon.
No.
Yeah. They're Boy Scouts. Again, they're looking. Why are Boy Scouts camping at a polluted lake, by the way?
Anyway, they're trying to clean it up.
Yeah, that was my one of my first things that just popped in my head. Why are Boy Scouts at a polluted lake? I mean, if I'm going to pay for my child to be in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, I don't want them going to like a toxic landfill.
really
for camp. So, that's one of the things. They claim it's a dragon. They saw this dragon. Other people claimed it was a giant salamander-like creature. Again, but no actual like dated reports can be proven for this. And, that's where explorers, we like to look at just by saying you have a lake monster, you're going to create tourism. And I always say follow the money.
Right.
The Jacques Cousteau thing has to be pretty much in my book is a hoax. Because if there was film, there was video, there was photos, it would have been sold by now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You go to Old Greenie up in the Finger Lakes of New York, Cayuga Lake. The guy who reports one of the best eyewitness testimonies on this owns a pro diving service.
Oh, jeez.
Well, what does that say? I own a diving service. This lake is not getting the tourism it used to. If I claim there's a lake monster here, people are going to want to come here and dive and boat and come here. Right. So you follow the money. A lot of these things are getting to be tourist traps. And you're seeing it more and more. I do paranormal research in Gettysburg a lot. Every business on Steinward Avenue has a sign up that says ghost tours.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that each one of these tours are unique and different when it's one street. It's a 4-block radius that they walk you on.
Right.
And they tell you the same ghost stories. And they take you back to the Wine Runner's Run or whatever it is back there. And they tell you about the people crawling down there and people seeing ghosts. Da, 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 da. I'll admit I have seen a ghost back there, or what I believe to be a ghost. I don't have film of it. I don't have a photo of it. But I have somebody else who was with me at the time who thinks they saw it. It's a money-making thing, though.
Yeah.
A lot of the lakes, lakes used to be big tourist places. You know, you used to have all these gigantic hotels built on these lakes. I mean, Lake Tahoe still is a very big tourist place.
Right.
But do people still go out boating like they used to? Do they still go fishing like they used to? And it helps less when you say no if you actually say the word and just don't shake your head.
I was yawning.
Just so you know.
My cold is getting the best of me.
Les actually said no, folks, when I said about fishing and boating, but he didn't say it to you guys. He just left it to me.
I'm mouthing.
Yeah, I'll translate Les for you. So, you know, some of this stuff, you know, is just it's follow the money, folks.
Yeah.
If there's a buck to be made, there's a buck to be made. And that basically brings us to the end of our episode, Les.
Yeah. Wow. That hour went pretty fast, didn't it?
Yeah, we did pretty well, I think.
Yeah, it was a good show. We apologize again for our lack of research as far as like the lake information and stuff like that. But this was more or less just giving some people out there an idea of lesser known aquatic lake monsters and stuff like that. Because there are so many of them, and I don't think people realize exactly how many of them we have within the United States. I mean, you just do a simple search online, and there are tons and tons and tons and tons of different reports out there. And like Chad said, follow the money. I mean, if you want to know what's believable, what isn't, follow the money. You'll be able to make your own, formulate your own conclusions to that, and yeah. So that's about it, and we'll be coming back again, hopefully soon. We don't have our next show ready quite yet, but we'll let you know. We'll keep you guys on the edge of your seat for now, but I guarantee you it's going to be a great topic, and it's going to be interesting as always. So, on behalf of myself and my co-host Chad, we wish you all a good night.